Back in Caelesti version 0.23, I added a new sun texture, a simple white circle with a powerful glow. The texture technically breaks the pixel consistency of my pack, if we're still bothered about that anyway, with the 1024 by 1024 pixel texture being roughly 32 times the size of the vanilla equivalent. In vanilla, the moon is only 8 pixels across, 64 squares to denote the layout of an entire cosmic body. Absurd. That would be like witnessing the overworld from space and the whole thing is displayed as a really simple text. Oh. Well, Caelesti is designed primarily for vanilla Minecraft's content. The only place you'll ever see the sun from is the overworld. You can't go there, you can't get closer or further away from the sun, so it may as well just be a really big texture to imitate a distant spherical body in the sky. The sun is around 150 pixels across, and the size including the glow effect is around 300 pixels in diameter. If we're following the rules of pixel consistency, this means that the sun is actually a little over 9 blocks in diameter, which means it's actually about this big. The texture is quite literally just a white circle with an outline effect. It's not designed to be pixel consistent, it's designed to mimic the appearance of the sun. The moon is going to be considerably more complex to design. It would be super easy to cut out a high definition image of the moon, give it a glow effect, and call it a day, but the moon has 8 distinct phases which we'll have to create and compile in a single texture. Editing Scal here, so it appears as though the moon texture system is actually changing at some point in the near future. I'm currently running 1.21.8, but I've also got the assets here for 25W41A, which I downloaded to have a gander at the brand new spears. It seems the moon texture has actually been split into 8 files. Look, it's neat having the actual phase of the moon as the file name, but wouldn't it be more intuitive to number these? Anyway, for the rest of the video, I'm going to assume as though the given moon texture is a single file. It's easier to keep track of and a little easier on my poor computer as well. The sun may be 32 times the scale of everything else in Caelesti, but how much detail should the moon have? From the Earth, you can't really see any detail on the sun's surface. Please do not go and look at the sun, by the way. The moon, however, appears a lot more detailed. You can oftentimes see the surface of the moon, and I want to replicate a certain level of detail for players to discover using a spyglass or, mods. How big should the moon texture actually be? Let's find out. Each individual block in Minecraft has a volume of 1 cubic meter. The default texture size of Minecraft is 16 by 16 pixels, therefore each individual pixel has a surface area of 6.25 centimeters squared. Whilst gathering footage for this segment, I wrote down that I needed to get a before and after shot of the 2 gas textures before and after Chase the Skies, and I was utterly convinced that someone out there would have made a pack purely to revert the now wonderfully high definition gas to its poorly mismatched prior self. And I googled exactly that, old gas texture resource pack, and found this absolute gem, so thank you, Gavroid? The new gas textures still aren't perfectly pixel consistent, but the higher definition texture does go a long way in making them look more in proportion than they once did. Anyway, pixel consistency. Since the vast majority of the pixels in Minecraft measure the same size, exceptions to this standard can be bothersome. Some of the worst offenders in vanilla Minecraft are the baby mobs, especially the baby turtle. There's a fantastic resource pack simply called Pixel Consistency, which aims to resolve these issues by giving baby mobs custom textures and models. The dungeon spawner mobs are also changed and they look particularly fun, but I would die for that baby turtle. Anyway, we were talking about the moon. By using the moon's actual diameter, we can figure out roughly how big the moon texture actually needs to be. A single meter stretches 16 pixels, so we can figure out the width of the theoretical moon texture using the real moon's diameter. So that's 3,474,800 meters times 16 to give us 55,596,800 pixels in diameter. I don't even know what to do with that information. So now we have the size of the moon itself, but what about the actual texture? The sun only takes up a very small portion of its texture, and the moon should be around the same size. The sun, without its haze, is exactly 152 pixels across, which means that it's 1/6, 0.736842, and so on, of the overall texture. We can multiply the width of the moon texture with this value to get the width of the final moon texture, blank space and all. The final texture size of this theoretical moon would have a height and width of 374,546,864 pixels. According to this one website I found, the texture resolution would be well, this, and the actual file size would be 420,000 terabytes. If I set up a data center and completely filled it with these 30 terabyte drives, it would take 14,000 drives or £8.5 million to store this hypothetical moon texture. I might have to set a new coffee donation goal. What do you guys say? Now that we know the proper dimensions of our pixel consistent moon, let's find a suitable image. The largest image I could find is this absolute stunner, aptly named Gigamoon. The photo was created by astrophotographer Andrew McCarthy McCarthy, and is effectively a 1.3 gigapixel image comprising of 280,000 individual photographs. I love how much color this image has. The blues and browns really break up the typical monotone appearance of the moon, but sadly, it's not going to work for Caelesti. See, we need an image of the moon that doesn't have any sort of shadow so that we can add the shadow afterwards to create the other moon variants. I found a good variety of pictures we can make use of, ranging from this vector graphic from Pixabay to a slightly more crunchy but accurate photo reposted on Reddit. I've used a combination of these and a few of the pictures of the moon to create this final composite texture. The texture that makes up the moon itself is going to have a limited color palette. I can use the quantize function to reduce the number of colors the moon is using, making it look a lot more like pixel art than the original images it's made up of. The texture as a whole isn't going to have a limited color palette though. I'm sorry for all you limited color palette enjoyers out there, but today's video is for the pixel consistency enthusiasts. See, the moon needs to have a sort of glow around it, and for that I am just going to use a gradient outline effect. I think that's looking pretty good. Now we can use this base texture to create all 7 of the other moon phases. First though, I've got a question for you. Is this moon the right way round? Does this look like the moon to you? If you answered yes, then you're either not very interested in the specific details of the moon, fair enough, or you live in the northern hemisphere. The moon looks quite different when viewed from different parts of the Earth, explained quite well by this graphic. So how exactly should the moon look in Caelesti? Well, if we keep it this way around, then it looks fine when the moon rises, but it's then upside down when the moon sets. In Minecraft, the way that the sun and moon move across the sky implies that you're always stood at the exact equator of the planet that you're on. At midnight, if you're facing south, you should be able to look up and see the moon as viewed from the northern hemisphere and vice versa when facing north. This means that the moon actually needs to be rotated 90 degrees clockwise, which results in it looking like this whilst rising and this whilst setting. Perfect. Now we need to figure out how our specific view of the moon will affect how it waxes and wanes. To start with, we can rotate the moon back around to show how it would appear when viewing it at midnight whilst looking south. Much like how the moon appears in vanilla Minecraft, the moon's shadow would appear to roll in from the right, steadily enveloping the entire moon. We can create each of the necessary textures in this way and then rotate them around once again so they appear correctly in game. I'd like to thank Ava for their brilliant advice on how to approach the moon phase textures created in this video. They linked me to a number of really interesting articles about how the moon is viewed from the Earth, and you can find all that stuff in the description if you're interested in having a read too. So how exactly did I create these textures? I kept an original copy of the moon texture without the glow, which came in really handy while creating the other phases. I duplicated the moon texture, shifted the colors towards a cold blue, and then massively reduced both the saturation and brightness, giving us the texture for the new moon. After that, I drew a straight line signifying the exact center of the image, and then carefully cut out the new moon texture to create the remaining 6 phases. And just like that, we have a custom texture for the full moon, waning gibbous, third quarter, waning crescent, new moon, waxing crescent, first quarter, and finally waxing gibbous. Now that all 8 moon phases are ready to go, let's scale up each texture so that the pixel density fits with the rest of Caelesti. Right now, each of the moon textures have a height and width of just 8,192 pixels, but as we discussed earlier, the moon itself needs to be 55 million pixels in diameter, and the whole texture needs to be 374 million pixels across. The pitiful 8K textures need to be scaled up by a factor of around 45,000 in order to be pixel consistent, but thankfully, I can just input the exact desired dimensions and let Paint.net do the rest. So once again, that's 374,546,864 pixels in both width and height. I wonder how long this is actually going to take. Okay, so truth be told, Paint.net seems to have a built-in limit of 262,144 pixels in either width or height, but even then, an image of that size would require 256 gigabytes of available RAM. So how much RAM would you need for the pixel-consistent moon? Well, it turns out you'd need around 500 petabytes. A 16 by 16 block texture is typically around 300 bytes. 1,000 bytes make up a kilobyte, and 1,000,000 bytes make up a megabyte. With 1,000,000,000 bytes, or 1,000 megabytes, you've got the familiar gigabyte. 1,000 of those, or 1 trillion bytes, and you've got a terabyte. At a staggering quadrillion bytes, you've got the petabyte. The pixel-consistent moon texture would need around 500 of those. Isn't it absolutely crazy to think that the original Lunar Lander's computer had just 4 kilobytes of memory? It could store about 12 block textures. Even without the ludicrous scale, these moon textures are already around 500 kilobytes each. Perhaps I should be looking to downscale them instead. If you want to get these moon textures for yourself, they'll be available to download in Update 47 for Caelesti. I honestly thought that these new moon textures simply wouldn't work until 1.21.12, but I tried compiling them all in the single tile sheet, and even though the texture is 16,000 pixels wide, it still works? Update 47 is now around 10% larger, but I say it's worth it. Before I finalize this update, I'll once again be doing another video implementing your feedback and suggestions. So if you do have any thoughts on my moon textures or anything else that's coming in the next update, do let me know in the comments below. That's all for now, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and bye-bye. There's a shit ton of credits in this video, so go read them. I'm not usually going to talk at the end of videos like this, it's just a one-time thing. Hey, this music machine is actually in my survival world, by the way. I might record outros at this one going forward. Hey, give that a watch. You made it this far.